Friends, how do we alleviate psychological suffering? How do we alleviate human suffering? The diseases of despair, the pathologies of mental anguish are no joke, characterized by excessive self-consciousness and excessive rumination. Things like anxiety, panic disorder, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder can really arrest our vitality and send us straight to hell. I have direct experience of what it's like to be in the throngs of psychological suffering. I know post-traumatic stress disorder. I know what it is to be so agitated by perpetual hypervigilance and relentless self-monitoring that the intrusive thoughts that are triggering physiological anxiety become your lived experience. It's difficult to articulate the torture of trauma. You know, David Lenson refers to trauma as temporal dislocation. We get stuck in the past. This traumatic experience is now brought to the doorstep of every moment. It becomes the psychological lenses of perception and the interpretive frameworks that we involuntarily coat the world with. Everything is seen through the lens of this fear that we can't shake. The problem, again, with trauma, or as they say, the body keeps the score, is that this physiological stuckness is in our tissues and it's in our mental patterns. It's in our mental patterns in the same way that like a broken record keeps looping on the same fucking lyric. We too can become stuck in these mental patterns, and the solidity of adulthood, of adult thinking, makes it very difficult to shake this. What is needed and what makes psychedelic intervention potentially so miraculous is that psychedelic compounds revert us to a highly plastic state, or what's called a pivotal mental state. Highly plastic states are what children are endowed with this kind of heightened impressionability and a capacity for deep learning. You know, when you are in a highly plastic state, not only can you be impressed upon by the world and also potentially traumatized, but you can also experience inverse PTSD. You can learn that whatever caused you trauma is no longer a danger to you. But this is something that needs to be learned in the body only when the mind is in a highly plastic state. And so what makes psychotropics so miraculous is that they engender a return to this plasticity and, in a sense, bring us back to the astounding frontier of the present moment, the impressionability of a child as he or she casts a fresh green breast of a new world, compelled into aesthetic contemplation and heightened receptivity, so that finally a deep psychological intervention can be impressed upon the psyche, can repair the damage, can bring you back to life. Now, I've been thinking about highly plastic states because I am no stranger to trauma. I am no stranger to hypervigilance. I am no stranger to relentless self-monitoring. I know what it's like to experience a panic attack. I know what it's like to feel like I can't breathe. I know what it's like to be assaulted by intrusive thoughts. I've known friends who've taken their lives because they could not flee the darkness in their mind. And so this is personal for me, more so because I also know what it's like to return to a state of grace and the kind of receptivity that allows me to decouple myself from this physiological stuckness of fear, where I can rewrite the patterns, where I can rewrite the maps, where the lenses of perception that have been tainted and discolored and are being brought to the doorstep of every moment can be replaced by a new interpretive, physiological, mythopoetic framework that changes everything, that silences the chatter, that kills the broken ego, that brings me back to life, that offers us a second chance at revivification, so we can at once learn to feel again without being afraid to feel. This is no joke, friends. This is a matter of life and death. These diseases of despair are taking more lives every year than violent conflict and armed conflict and natural disasters combined. And so this is a psycho-spiritual emergency. And if we don't mend our fractures, if we don't heal our brokenness, if we don't get ourselves into these highly plastic states where we can go in there and make the surgical intervention that changes the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, well, then there's no hope for us. And so my invitation, friends, is to support the creation of infrastructure, support networks of intervention, scale the systems that make it easy for people to find access to the psychological treatments and interventions that will give them a second chance at life. Because, well, no one deserves to drown in that kind of psychological darkness. It's not something I wish upon anyone. The torture and the anguish of a mind that turns against itself, of a psyche that is stuck in a loop of fear, is unimaginably horrific. And I see hope in heightened plasticity. I see hope in heightened impressionability. I see hope in opening ourselves to a new story and a new framework of self-understanding that finally steps us out of the swamp in which we have been drowning. Thanks for listening.